It's the end of another era, if you can believe that. We're in Champlain on a hazy but rather delightful late day in June 2005 where the temperature's finally broken and it's in the 70s instead of the 90s. And we're here to give you a little bit of the history of Champlain Laundry and Cleaners, interviewing Ken LaPlant and some of the staff members in a business that is familiar not only to me, having been in the media for the last 44 years, but to most people who live and reside and work in the North Country. It's soon to be sold and will be closing its doors. We're going to find out a little bit about how it began and how it will meet its eventual demise. Stay with us for our little corner.
Everybody needs humor.
And we're now on the inside.
Good.
How are you, Kenneth?
I'm very well, thank you.
Mr. Ken LaPlant, I told you he was going to be here with us today. This is a story I've wanted to do for a long, long time. Why does it always have to be at the end instead of in the middle somewhere?
Well, I was thinking this is probably what you normally do not do. Usually you're welcoming new businesses, and this is the end of a business.
It's amazing. And it's been here for how long?
Well, my father started in I'm not sure whether it's 28, 29, 30, somewhere in there.
Oh my goodness, has it been that long? I know I did a lot of commercials for Champlain Laundry and Cleaners on the radio.
Not always at this location, but about in the 30s, it became this location. It was a wooden building, and a lot of add-ons to it, construction-wise, and all wood. You might say it was really built to burn. Because it was
oh, golly.
It was a 3-story building, and when it caught fire, it was all down within an hour.
No kidding.
It was flat.
But the place has great memories for you personally,
right? Certainly. We lived here. We were brought up here.
Come on.
Oh, yes, that's true.
Isn't that amazing? And here you are now, all these years later.
Yeah. I think I lived upstairs in the apartment for till I was 14, 15. And then Dad bought another house and moved to that location. And by that time, maybe it was even 16 or 17, because then I went on to college and came back. And of course, we had rented out the upstairs to a person that worked for us at that time. So we were gone out of this location.
Where did you go to school?
I went to school in Champlain and then went on to a technical school that taught the laundry business, actually.
No kidding.
Yes.
They have such things?
Yes, yep. Not that I know of now, but back then there did, and I was fortunate to get into it for 2 years, and then came right into the business and worked here for 50 years. It was part of the University of Ohio, I think. It was in Cincinnati.
No kidding.
Yep.
And you heard about it? And
I'd heard about it and called and got right into it. And so as soon as I got out of high school, I started a school there in the fall and got out 2 years later in May.
It's far less common today for sons to follow in their father's footsteps than
Yes, it
was
is.
in your day.
Yeah.
It was just, I guess, a more natural progression back then. You were probably expected to...
Well, I don't know if I was expected. I had the choice, but I always enjoyed working here, as opposed to my brother who did not want to become part of the business, and he went into another, Clifford LaPlant, and he went into another endeavor. Went to college, graduated from college, went into the officers training program, becoming an officer in the Air Force, spent time around the world, basically doing lobbying for the Air Force, what he ended up doing. Got out of the Air Force, went to work for Boeing in the same position, left Boeing, went to work for GE, and was a public relations person for GE in Washington, D.C. for 20-some-odd years, and has since now retired.
And lives where?
He lives in Virginia.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep.
So
and
many of my friends abandoned the North Country and live in Virginia. Must be a pretty good place.
He also has a home in Lima, Peru. His wife is from Lima.
Oh,
and does a lot of work over there with children. He has a program called Children Come First. And that's occupying a major part of his life now. And of course, my sister passed away some time ago. And after she was married, she decided to get out of the business. And so then I was in the sole working part of the business.
All right, we're going to pause for a moment and be back with this very interesting story at Champlain Laundry and Cleaners. You know, as I alluded to just a moment ago, some people decide to move on with their lives, go to college, do other things like your brother did, and end up in Virginia and Lima, Peru.
Hmm.
And you just decided that this was your home and this is where you were going to plant your
That's
feet
right.
every day.
That's right. I married a local girl and been married for 50 some odd years. So that worked out well. And I was very, very happy working here. It was a great opportunity for me. I enjoyed working, and for 50 years I worked, and most days I enjoyed very much coming to work. I thought that all the employees were friends. I like to treat them as friends, and they treated me as a friend as well as an employee. So I wasn't a person that hated my job. I loved my job.
If I can't imagine, and believe me, I talk to people, and I'm not going to point fingers at any professions or any individuals, but I meet people all the time who've been in their job. I've been in my job for 35 years. You love it? No, I hated every blank minute of it. I can't imagine what life must be like if you don't love
That's
to
right.
go to work in the morning.
That's right. I really can't understand those people that work in a job they dislike.
Yeah, why?
Why?
There's
That's
so many
the big
opportunities
question.
today.
There's so many opportunities and so many things to get into, but it takes a personal commitment to change jobs and to get into something you do like, and I think that holds a lot of people back because they are afraid to commit to something and are afraid to extend themselves.
A little bit of philosophy here, if you
Oh,
don't
yes.
mind, of the workplace. But Calvin and I never fail to take the opportunity of promoting the North Country. And we've spent a lot of time lately in the little communities here along the northern tier, from Morris to Ellenburg to Champlain to Rouse's Point. And there's a lot to be said for living here, raising a family, right? And you've
Oh,
been here
yes.
forever.
Yes. Yes.
There's a lot to be said for this
You
rural
develop
North Country way of
lifelong
life.
friends, and we're looking forward to the high school reunion in July. We'll see many of our old friends who went to school with. That's always a very happy
How
time.
many years for you?
Oh, I graduated in 1948, I believe. 48 or
really?
49. I always get that confused, but it was back then.
Yeah, but who's counting, right?
That's right. That's
Well,
right.
I don't mind telling younger people like Calvin that mine was 50 years ago, 1955, in Moira, and it's interesting to see. And I went back and saw some people I hadn't seen since the day I walked out of that school.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. Very
It
interesting
is.
to talk to people. And it's amazing how many people have left the area and become so successful that at the time when you're students, you always, I don't know if you wonder about each other, but I was always amazed to have people come back and tell me what they've done and done such good things with their life. And it's rewarding to think that our little school system developed so many wise people in this.
That's
community.
something to be proud of all by
Yes, it
itself.
is.
Because we've talked a lot about education and teachers here in the North Country, and we all, Calvin and you and I, have always paid attention to that, what's happening in the schools, and some things we've grieved over and some things we've celebrated.
Yeah.
But it is great to see who goes where. And I was, as you were speaking, I was remembering a 1955 Brushton yearbook, which I happened to be in, even though it wasn't my school because I went to band there. And I was looking at some of the prophecies, the class prophecies the other night about who would
Yes.
become what. And
They
of
were
course,
all
nobody
very
ever
interesting. Very
ever
interesting.
does what they said you're going to be. I don't know what they predicted for you.
I'm not sure either, to tell you the truth. But I never thought I was a very good student, and I think I got through high school with the good graces of Dan Marr, our supervising principal at the time, who has since passed, and just a wonderful person. We became great friends after I came back from college, and it was a long, good relationship, and always one with my dad and he, and with myself and him. He was a great person to have around, and a good person in the school system to have.
As I said to many people as I met with and facilitated a group where I work at the Clinton County Probation Department today, we're all many things, many emotions, many individuals, many personalities all wrapped into one. And this guy's life has been very, very interesting, and it's been a life of dedication. We want to talk about that in a minute. But first of all, where are we standing in relation to this business? I see lots of dry cleaning around here.
Well, we're standing in what we call the call office of Champlain Laundry and Cleaners at 1197 Main Street in Champlain. This is where basically it all started. We do have a what we call a dry store in Plattsburgh, where most of our business comes out of now, is out of Plattsburgh, of course. And
Is that still in Wallach Plaza or whatever?
yes, it is. It is still there across from, I always say across from Rambach's Bakery.
Yeah, of course. Jerry Rambach would be proud to have you say that.
That's right. And everybody knows about his bakery, so it's a
and
good
those
landmark.
Yum Yums made me what I am today.
That's right. It's a good landmark. And we've been in that location for probably 15 years at least. So it's well known to most of the people in Plattsburgh.
You know, you're getting flashbacks because you're such a good guy and easy to talk to, Ken. But I remember my son-in-law, Galen Pavone, who's now taught at Plattsburgh High School for 30-some years. I don't even remember how many. But he first got out of college. He went to a wonderful university and got home with that diploma. And couldn't get a job. You know, he peddled that resume everywhere. And for a long time, he drove a laundry truck and proudly displayed his diploma in the as he drove the laundry truck.
Around.
And I thought he was going to end up doing it for a living, and that wouldn't have been bad, except that he finally got a
Well,
teaching
I always
job.
thought it was an honorable profession to be in, and I've enjoyed it, certainly. At one time, we had 45 employees here when we were back.
You got to be kidding.
No, we were doing a lot of contract work. I think that was back in 1967 when Expo was on.
Oh,
we were working,
boy, there's a memory we haven't even
we were
delved
working
into
what we
lately.
call a shift and a half. We started at 6 in the morning and worked till 11 o'clock at night. It almost killed me, but...
You were working the whole shift and a half?
well, I had to more or less work the whole shift.
Oh,
And it was a hot summer, but we got through it and did well and changed the whole operation after that. It gave us the opportunity to put some money aside, and we reinvested it into the business and modernized the whole situation. So that helped us in the future.
we're going to talk a great deal about how you got to stand here with me today in 2005 in late June and talk about the end of this business and the beginning. We're going to fill in all the blanks. Once again, my mind was wandering. It can do that sometimes. And I remembered as a small child during the war, as a young kid, my mother worked in a local laundry down in Westchester County. She called it a sweatshop.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And she made the number 43 cents an hour seems to stick in my mind. It's possible.
Yes, it is.
And the
Yes,
whole
it is.
thing burned down. Not only was she out of a job, which she sorely needed, but we lost all of our laundry and when the place burned down.
Yeah. You know,
Why that jumped
happened
into
to
my head
us.
right now, I never know.
We burned down in 1950 in June 28th on a very hot day. And as I said, the whole thing was flattened in an hour. It was a huge wooden building, 3 stories. And there wasn't any thought given to prevention of fire at the time. It just didn't occur to us that it would ever burn. And
Isn't it amazing?
lo and behold, it did. And after that, of course, we were very fire conscious. This building is all sprinklered, of course. So it makes a big difference in your thinking. It's like losing a part of your family when
Oh,
you
can
see
you
that
imagine?
happen. And
Wow.
it was 6 months before we got back on our feet.
That's wonderful. We're going to pause for another moment, and we'll continue this great story of Champlain Laundry and Cleaners. We talked about your childhood and the fact that you lived here. Let's talk about your famous family. Your dad was a very well-known politician in this area.
Yes, he was. He served as a trustee for some time and was elected mayor at one time and served as a mayor for probably, I'm going to say at least 10, 12 years, somewhere in that length of time. And he always believed in something, giving something back to the community. And he's kind of pushed that onto me.
Doesn't it? It sounds like a familiar hue and cry. I use it all the time till it almost sounds trite. But that's one of the reasons I'm still here after all these years.
He
Not
was
to
also-
interject my own life in here, but when I first came in here, this was going to be a stepping stone for me. I was going to make the big time.
Well,
Yeah, the big time for me was Rouse's Point, Champlain, Cadyville.
and I guess it all depends on how you measure big time. He was also very instrumental in bringing the North Country Medical Center to the area.
I
And that
had
covers
forgotten that aspect of it.
Champlain, Rouse's Point, Moores, and a lot of people from Shazy at the time. and got that started. And with the help of so many other good people, Frank Forbes, I know was instrumental, and there are some other people that were instrumental in that portion. But it was a point of satisfaction for him to bring in some good medical assistance to the North Country.
Well, you've already expressed to us here today that you're proud of what this North Country did for you as a child with your education and your friendships. And Calvin and I all feel that way. And most of the people we interview feel that way. It is an obligation to give back.
I believe it is. I believe it is. There are so many people that do not give back, that just take, and I think they're losing a good share of good feeling in their life. Because it is a point of satisfaction and great satisfaction to be able to give back to the community.
You know, it's a good point for me to interject this here, and I apologize for the extra sound here, but that's a very important part of where we are, that fan up there, right?
Mm-hmm. We can, why don't we just shut that off and get rid of some of that sound?
It's up to you.
Certainly.
Okay. Oh, silence. Ooh. You know what I wanted to say? Every time you talk, it inspires me to say something, and I don't say much important, but we just celebrated the life of the late Senator Ron Stafford. A huge number of people turned out to pay homage to a man who gave a lot to this North Country. And regardless of your politics, you cannot deny that every one of our lives was impacted in some measure by the late Ron Stafford. And I would like to take this opportunity to offer my personal condolences to his family, but also the celebration of the man's life. For every community here in Clinton County and many other counties owe something to Ron Stafford. When you say give back, there is the definition.
Prime example.
The definition of giving back.
There's probably no one that has lived in the North Country more than 10 years that has not profited from the life of Ron Stafford. He gave so much to this community, and so much that people don't even know about, and probably will never know about. But we in the North Country were very, very fortunate to have Ron Stafford. I met him as a young person, very young person, in the hospital, and he was in visiting my aunt who was in the hospital, because I think they had rooms next to each other, and that was how I first met Ron Stafford.
No kidding.
And he was the type of person that could remember those things for 20, 30, 40 years, could remember where he met you, knew your relatives,
your sister's name,
knew everything
your
about you,
name, your kids.
And what a great gift to have. But he also used it to help the people in the North Country, and that's what we're really thankful for about Ron Stafford.
It's very nice that we had this opportunity.
Fine, great person.
Wondering how we could get that, our little hometown cable tribute to Ron Stafford. That's a good thing. But you've given back in more ways than Champlain Laundry and Cleaners. Tell me about some of the other things you've done during your lifetime.
Well, I guess I've done a few things. I've been a member of the ski patrol at Smuggler's Notch for 32 years, and that got me into the first aid portion of it. Then I got into the first aid portion of being a ski patroller, and then realized that EMS in Clinton County was advancing, and we needed a more advanced support system for our people in the North Country. I got involved in EMS in Clinton County, and was probably instrumental in starting the ambulance service in Champlain. And that has changed so much. Mr. Castine was up at our open house on Saturday, and we had a speaker by the name of Mike Legree, who is manager of CVPH Services, Ambulance Service and Transports. And he talked about EMS past and present in Clinton County, and did a tremendous job of speaking for only 15 minutes, but he kind of said everything that needs to be said about EMS and where it's going, we hope, and where it's been. And there's been some tremendous changes in EMS and continue to be.
So you really were immersed, and still are. I mean, we had a recent drowning boating accident up here, and we've had a lot of terrible things that happen, mostly at night.
Unfortunately, a lot of things happen
on Ken's watch
at night, and it just happened to be I was on duty that night. But it isn't only me. We have tremendous support and many fine people in EMS and fire in Clinton County. And it's just amazing how much time that they give. Unbelievable how much time is involved.
Yeah, and you've
in fighting
dedicated
fire
your
and
life to
EMS.
it. How long has it been since you were an EMT?
Some 20 some odd years. I think we started in 1976, and I think I was on the first class of advanced critical care status with Mike Legree in Clinton County, and I've remained at that advanced status. I'd always dreamed of becoming a paramedic, but that requires about 1,000 hours,
Advanced EMTs have to spend a lot of hours.
Oh yes, it's about 300 plus hours.
Think about it.
And then it's not only the hours to become that status, you have to continue studying all the time, because we have to meet with the doctors every 6 months and do what we call a mega code, and there are many continuing education programs that we have to attend to keep our status up, and so that we can provide better care to the public.
Well, I personally will congratulate you for that many years of service. I've spoken to you before in that line. I've watched you operate up here for many, many years in that capacity. We just celebrated a long career for Jim King when he retired as a emergency services director in our county. So that's the end of one era and the beginning of another. But I hope that our viewers will pay attention to how far we've come in the ambulance and rescue services and volunteer fire services here in the North Country. In the old days, it was whoever was near the ambulance, jump and drive, the next guy rode in the back, and you transported people to the hospital, but you couldn't do IVs, and you took a couple of first aid courses, and those were wonderful volunteers. But as we all know, it's moments that count.
That's right, that's right. And we routinely save lives.
Oh, God.
And it's just part of our job. A lot of people say, well, he should be given a medal for this and that. Most of the EMTs and advanced people I know really do not want the medals. We just feel it's part of our training and part of our job. And why should you get a medal for doing something that you've been trained to do?
But it's satisfying.
It's satisfying.
At the end of the day, it's satisfying.
They should be recognized. I'll agree with that, because that's how we keep them around, is that if nobody is ever recognized for good service, it's not quite as satisfying, but you always have the personal satisfaction of doing a good job.
Okay, now we're going to switch gears.
Okay.
What room are we in?
We are now what we call the finishing portion of Champlain Laundry and Cleaners. Behind me, to my right, is what we call a finishing unit, and what we do is finish trousers and other garments that need to be finished, doctors' uniforms, doctors' coats, and that sort of thing. In back of me is the shirt unit. We'll let Calvin get around here. Let me just step over here.
I'll follow you.
This is what we call a shirt unit, and each individual unit does a different portion of the shirt. This first unit, as you can see, does the sleeves. The next unit does the collar and cuff, and this unit over here in back of me does the body of the shirt, so that it's completely finished by the time it arrives to this table. And this is the folding table, where the shirt is either folded or put on a hanger, depending on the customer's preference.
It's amazing, and a lot of this equipment is like old soldiers. It's been around here for a while, right?
Yes, it is. This unit is probably 20 years old. It's what we call a single buck unit. Now there are what they call double buck units, where you can do two bodies of the shirts at the same time.
Yeah.
So one in, one out, which increases the capacity, of course, and that's what it comes down to, is how many you can produce in an hour. And you try to maintain the quality. It's kind of interesting, because I think there are about 10 buttons on every shirt, and if
anybody would know how many buttons are on their shirt, you would know. I wouldn't have a clue. All I know is I'm left-handed, and it's very hard for me to button with my right hand, because I'm not very facile with.
Well, if you miss a button, then you have customer dissatisfaction. So part of the job is to check all the buttons. And
I don't believe I've ever complained about somebody missing a button.
Right over there in the end is a little button sewer, which sews on buttons in our shirt period of time.
Who would ever think of that? I would never think of that. But
it's part of the service, because people expect to have their shirts back with all the buttons and ready to wear, and that's the way they want it.
Boy, once again, my mind is wandering, Kenneth. I remember the days when my father wore the celluloid
Oh,
collars
that goes way back there. That goes way back
with
there.
collar buttons.
Yeah.
I can remember seeing those boxes of collars and the shirts coming back all starched and pressed. And my father said, "Where's my collar buttons?"
That was another profession in its own, and it's all changed. Most of the shirts produced today are what they call wash and wear. They're made to wash them and with very, very little ironing. And it's always gratifying for me to see somebody in a white shirt and a tie, because he's got to be a true profession to maintain that status as being well dressed and well groomed.
Believe me, I wore one every day of my life for 36 years in the radio business. And when I started this business as a crime victims advocate, my wife said, "You have to wear a shirt and a tie." I did for a few years. But then I gravitated, and in the summertime, baby, what you see is what you get.
I was lucky because we never had to wear a shirt and tie, of course, to come to work here. I always like to see people well groomed. That's part of my upbringing, is to see people well groomed. And in today's life, you can go to church and expect to see people in shorts, dungarees, and I was never brought up that way. When you went to church, you had to have a suit on, you had to have a shirt and tie on. And I've kind of relaxed that myself now. Sometimes I'll go to church with a sport jacket and an open neck shirt, but I always wonder whether I should have that tie on in church.
There's a Sunday best, like the Easter best, huh? Like the Easter bonnet. Well, just before we move around, describe more of what we're seeing in here. Can you tell me what's happening now? We're recording this in late June 2005. We mentioned early in the program, as far as we can tell, this will be the end of Champlain Laundry and Cleaners. Aren't you having terrible separation pangs and
I try not to think about it too much.
We're gonna make you think about it for a minute.
I've been retired out of the business now for 5 years, and my son has been running the operation. So I come in and read the paper, and when they start talking business, I kind of sneak out the door because it was my son's problem. And the business climate has changed. Labor problems have increased, and a lot of other problems that have existed in Champlain, water problems for us. It's hard to wash. You have to have absolutely clean water and non-corrosive water, and that's been a problem for a few years. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just evolution of the water system, and we had to improve to get away from the river water, so to speak. And we're unlucky to be in an area where the water is highly corrosive. So
no kidding. See, I would have no way of knowing that if I hadn't come here today.
Very difficult to deal with. So that's part of the evolution, and most of our business is not here anymore. It's in Plattsburgh. And the other portion of our business, which was linen supply and uniform rental, which we were very, very big in, that has disappeared. You had to get bigger, much bigger. And we're being gobbled up by bigger companies that are in the uniform business, and also a linen supply business, which is part of the evolution of business and Clinton County and all over the world.
So many aspects of the business that people don't stop to think about. And I can remember, you also, didn't you clean the rugs that go in front of doors?
Yes, we call them entrance mats or walk-off mats.
I remember in the radio business, hearing the front door open and hear that flapping sound when the rug goes down.
That's
the guy
right.
would put the clean rug down and take off.
That's right. We had hundreds of them out there in different businesses, and they're still out there. They're just not our rugs anymore. They're somebody else's rugs that are in the same type of business.
Was this a very difficult decision to come to this point?
No, because I had when my son came into business with me, I told him right from the start that any time he became dissatisfied, or any time the business climate changed, that if he felt it should go, then it would be sold, and we would do the best we could to get out of it in a good manner. Which we've accomplished. We sold off most of the business about a year ago. The linen supply, most of that went, and also the uniform leasing, which was a more lucrative part of the business, which was very easy to sell.
So other people have picked up the torch. Is that what you're telling me? There won't be just this total gap in services.
Well, I was in competition with these people, But you know, we were located strictly in the North Country. We went up into the Franklin County, Malone, Messina area is where we drew the line up there, and as far south as Keysville, and over into Vermont. But when you're competing with a nationwide company that goes in and makes and has the ability to contract with a big local outfit, say a big dry goods store or a big food operation, they will sign a corporate contract. Or with the banks, they'll sign a corporate contract with a bank that's located all over the state and probably all over the nation. So they take that complete business away from you. And it all hurts. So we were dealing with mostly small businesses and local people that wanted to do business locally. And that climate has changed.
You've mentioned the word climate several times, but that described it. The climate changes, and so businesses change.
That's right.
You
That's
get
right.
the big retail stores that come in, and the little guys are have to move out of the neighborhood, or go to work for the big guy, or whatever.
That's right. You know, it's like Walmart and Sam's.
Yeah.
Big operation, but certainly Sam Walton, I think it was the name, developed Walmart, was a very, very successful person and had the idea to go nationwide, whatever, and made a lot of money and lowered the price to a lot of people. So how can you fight that?
Yeah. So you are where you are, and you've had time to think about what's happening to Champlain Laundry and Cleaners.
Oh yes.
And I'm sure your opinions.
It doesn't happen overnight. You can see see the writing on the wall, and it's how you're going to get out of it gracefully, I guess, and not lose not lose all the money that you have invested, to try to get out of it without being hurt too badly.
I'm sure that some people who are watching this program are getting this information for the very first time. It's like having an old friend, losing an old friend, and for you, it's like losing a member of the family.
Oh yes, we had a person come in who's an immigration custom officer, or the new term I can't think, the home security person.
Yeah, Homeland Security.
And he was bitterly complaining and saying, you know, it took me 6 months to find a good hairdresser up here, and he says, I just found a laundry operation that knows how to finish my trousers, and he said, now you tell me that you're leaving. And he was very upset. But you know, it's we're selling it to a local person. So even though this operation will disappear, this person is still going to offer laundry and dry cleaning, and I understand the linen supply portion he's sold to another person who's a high quality operation. So things will go on. It's not disappearing completely.
So this wonderful old historic plant will close.
Yes.
As we're doing this, as I said, in late June. When will it close?
We're going to cease operation on Friday or Saturday of this week.
Oh my goodness!
We will be all done.
We really were here near the very end, weren't we?
Yes. We'll stay open. The front office will stay open and provide care to the customers that have clothes here, so that they'll have the opportunity to pick them up. And after the month's time, if they're not picked up, then we'll transfer them to the person we sold to. They'll go into his operation, and he'll be responsible for keeping them for the customer.
We were recording this on the Wednesday before that Friday that you just mentioned. I didn't realize you're really a short-termer.
That's right.
What's going to happen to the building, the rest of this building? Do you know?
No, that's a big problem that I'm facing, is that I own the building and I have no idea what I'm going to be able to do with this building.
So you haven't made that decision? Huh?
Well,
No?
there's nobody banging on the door saying,
You're not beating them
I
off,
love this
huh?
building. So that's a problem. It is not built for a warehouse type operation. It's got, you know, most of those have huge high ceilings, and this does not have a high ceiling except in this area here. And the back portion behind me has got wooden floors and a cellar underneath, so it's not made for that type of operation. You have to face that fact. So I'm not sure just would be helpful too. Maybe somebody can make apartments out of it or do something else with it. I'm not sure just where it's going to go. I may end up just tearing it down.
But this building's been here for almost 55 years?
Since 1951, it has many add-ons, of course. And as we go through, you know, I can show you where the add-ons are. But this portion we're standing is a steel-type building, and this is an add-on too.
You know, we've done so many historical things on this camera, and Calvin's been doing it since the early 1980s. it's a pleasure and a very sad experience to see this happen. I've never been inside this building before. I've taken many items to Champlain Laundry and Cleaners in Plattsburgh, and I've done literally hundreds, perhaps even thousands of commercials for the business down through the years, some with jingles, some without. So it's, and I've also known you on the periphery for many years and have admired you as a person and as a business person here in the North Country, and for that giving back that you've talked about.
Well, I appreciate your
So
words.
are you planning, what's the
I'm-
next chapter
I'm
for you?
planning
You're
to-
still a young guy.
To stay in a location. I have a daughter lives down in Clifton Park, and she has 5 young boys, and she just loved to have us down there. I keep telling her I can't afford to move down there because housing is so expensive down
And
there.
it is too.
But that's the other option. We also have a daughter in California, which is a great climate part of the country.
Oh, you can go in any direction, can't you?
That option is always there. But and we may
Yeah,
just
yeah,
stay
sure.
in Champlain. I don't know.
Yeah. But who knows?
Who knows?
This is a point where you can go in many directions, can't you?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yep.
But you've kept yourself physically strong over the years, and as I tell Calvin and anybody else who wants to listen, when I feel good when I wake up in the morning at my age, I say, okay, here we go.
Well, I get up in the morning and exercise every day,
It's wonderful.
and I try to do that, and I think that's one of the reasons why I feel so good. There's some days I just feel so good, I wonder when the axe is going to fall.
Well, and I do
Because
the
say,
same.
At 75, how can you feel so good? But, I do, and I love life.
Yeah, and that's exactly the way to be. We're going to see the rest of this place if you don't mind.
Not at all.
All right, let's do it. Okay. What's happening?
This is what we call doing the body of the shirt. It's what we call a body press, and as you can see, it glides in, and there are 2 very hot surfaces that squeeze up against the shirt and dry and finish the shirt, give it that finished look, if you will. And this is just one portion of the operation. Behind me is a unit that does the collar and the cuff of the shirt, which I believe we have already picked up on the camera.
But each operation has to be separate.
Each operation is separate, and it's all done because of speed and because one unit
it's
can't
hot,
do
all
it
right.
all. Oh,
Yeah,
it's hot.
baby.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Oh,
Yep. This is one of the warm places to work. No question about that. Laundries are noted for being warm. But I got to tell you, on a hot day, I would rather be in this plant working than outdoors because we have these big, huge exhaust fans up on top of the building that just move so much air that you feel you're standing in a nice breeze all the time.
I love
You may
it.
not think so, but I always enjoyed working here when it was hot. The only problem we ever had was when it gets really humid and the air is heavy and doesn't move like a nice hot dry day.
So this is where the shirts were done.
This is where the shirts were done.
And there won't be too many more done here? Is that what you're telling me?
Not in this location, but the new owner is going to be moving this unit down to his place in Plattsburgh, and he'll be using this to finish shirts on.
These equipment like this is expensive when you buy it, but it lasts for a long time, right?
Yes, it does. This is about a $30,000 unit.
No kidding.
Oh, yes.
And this one's been around, you said, for 20 some years?
We've had here for at least 10, 15, 20 years. Yeah. It's air operated and steam heated. So every piece of equipment in the laundry mostly is controlled by compressed air.
No
So
kidding.
you have to have every moving part is usually controlled by air, compressed air.
There's always the possibility that a piece of equipment that's critical is going to break down just as you start the operation. On a
Always
given
on the
day.
hottest day and the
Is it
busiest
really?
day.
Is that Murphy's Law?
That's Mr. Murphy.
He knew what he was talking about, didn't he?
Yes, he
All right,
did.
let's move out of here.
Okay.
You know, we were just saying off camera that you were such dear friends with the late Bob Venn. I'm sure Bob's looking down on us right now. He started this thing many years before and had done something like 500 programs before he had the bad sense to die just as I was leaving the radio business. And Calvin stopped in at my house and said, Gordy, would you like to try to pick up where Bob left off? And I said, nobody could do that. Those are pretty big shoes.
Well,
But you and he
got,
were dear friends from childhood, right?
Yes. We got to know him. I believe he started in going to school in Chazy and somehow transferred to Champlain. and he was in the same class as my brother. And
Played
because
ball together.
all played basketball, baseball, and all those sports in high school. And because he lived out in the country, he was always invited to stay here whenever he needed a place to stay for the night. And we used to have a big dog. He used to jump in bed in the morning, and those sort of things. Memories that go way back as young people have fun with their friends. So we always enjoyed Bob, and always remained a good friend of ours.
And Calvin has told me that for the last 15 years, and for half of that time Bob Venn was still alive, they've been begging you to do a program at Champlain Laundry and Cleaners, and you resisted right to the very end. What the heck broke down your resistance?
Well, I thought that at the end, I think there are certain portions of this building where as you look down at such a maze of pipes and paraphernalia that's hanging and whatever, would not make a good impression on the customer, and I was always hesitant.
See how
to have
far
people come in
wrong
and,
you are, Kenneth. One of the
look at
most
the
successful programs Calvin and Bob ever did was what some people might consider a very unsightly sawmill. And more people have talked about that interview and that old man and that what was his name, Calvin?
Misek.
Jimmy Misek.
Yes.
That's the most successful and
That's
the most
right.
talked about program that Calvin has ever done.
That's right. I think Dr. Southwick is second on the list with his old cars. He remembers and knows everybody in the North Country.
We drop his name every now and again, and yes, he also drops in on an occasional interview with us. So
That's right.
he's got his 2 cents worth or 2.5 cents worth several times. What's this room?
This was the assembly area and for finished dry cleaning, and also was the main assembly area for the uniform leasing program that we were in. We used to go into small businesses. Well, let's pick on Jack Dragoon, who's a well-known businessman.
We might as well.
Morris.
Talk about the end of an era. I tell you, these eras are all...
Number of employees he had working, we would dress them in uniforms, which is the thing to do. It gave them identification, which is important in any business. So we would supply them with the number of uniforms they requested, and we would clean them and maintain them, rips and tears, and the things that need to be done with uniforms. And the great thing about uniform leasing is that if, say, you hire a person that's size waist 30, and then he leaves for whatever reason, or gains weight, or for whatever reason, we just take those trousers back and give them a new size. Or if it's a new person, the new person is never the same size as the old person, so he gets new uniforms to start off with. So that's the gist of uniform leasing, basically. It was an identification which became important, and in the life of the business is to be recognized. Everybody needs to be recognized. Employees got to be recognized, but they also advertised the business where they worked, which is important.
So this was an assembly area? What do you
This
mean by
was
that?
the assembly area. Well, we had, say we had 100 different businesses. So on a Monday, we probably had 30 or 40 different businessmen whose uniforms we were assembling, and it went by man number of the shirt of that business, and also every business was given a number. So we had two numbers we worked by, the number of the business and the employee, so that we packaged each business separately and each person separately, so that when we delivered, we probably had 20 men, and they start off man number 1, man number 2, and down the line. So we did that for many years. We were very successful at the time because there was no local person in this business, and at that time people liked to do business locally. I think we had most of the automobile dealerships in Plattsburgh. Mr. DeRoche was a fine friend, still in business. The Garians, which I always admired, great businessmen. Riley Ford and Shazy, Mr. Parker and Champlain. We did business with all those people, and we're very fortunate that I considered them all good friends.
They do become friends.
Yes, they do.
And they better be, and you never, ever, ever made a single mistake in what shirt went in with what pants and what number.
Oh, well, people are human. And of course, I wasn't doing all the work, so there were mistakes made.
I bet you didn't make many.
I
bet you didn't make many, and I've seen a lot of those nice uniforms that were done right here.
We've had so many good people work for us over the years. It's just amazing. You know, I think about I used to say most of our good people come from Moores, Altona, and Moores Forks, and not to belittle Champlain, but because we had such a workforce at the time that a lot of these people have worked for us for 20 and 30 and 40 years, which is I thought was amazing.
I cannot believe that you had 40 what?
We had 45 people working at one
That's
time.
amazing to me.
Yeah.
I never would have guessed.
Well, we had a lot of contracts, big contracts, and I can remember one huge contract we had, and a person came to me and said, do you think you can really grow to do this business? And I always said, look, there's no trouble growing. I said, this is a contract, and you require bottom line service, means by the dollar, so that we don't expect to keep you forever. You're going to find somebody that's going to come along and do it cheaper, and you're going to leave. I said, the hardest part is losing a big account because you have to downsize, and it's always tough to downsize, believe me.
Did you
Very,
ever?
very difficult.
Did you ever have any contracts with a former Air Force base?
Yes, we did, sure.
Did
Sure.
you? Civilian employees?
Not so much civilian, but Army, all the enlisted men.
Oh, no kidding. With the
yeah,
Air Force?
Where they bunked on the base. We did all of that in Linden at one time.
No kidding.
Oh, yes, yeah.
That's a surprise.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you have guessed that they would do that all on site?
No, the Air Force Base never had a facility of their own.
No kidding.
Yeah, they had coin-operated laundries for the personnel that lived on the base, but and we never got into the retail, what I call retail end. We never had a store on the base to take care of the families. We did basically the contract work, and at times they would come in 100, 200, 300, 400 blankets, say nothing about the
Wow.
sheets and pillow slips and that sort of thing.
Well, you said before the climate has changed. Man,
climate has changed,
That
certainly.
changed abruptly
Certainly.
in 1995, and that's for sure.
And that was all, whoever was the lowest bidder. You had to
You worked
bid
with
for
a lot of stuff like that, didn't you?
Oh, yes, yes. You had to bid for that, and it was always an interesting process. It was scary to do it the first time because there's so much paperwork involved, and you have to make sure you got your figures right because you're bidding for a year, and if you don't do it all right, you could end up losing money.
That could be a
Then
terrible
you'd end
faux
up
pas.
with a penalty. So
That's true too.
yeah.
That's a lot of things. I'm glad we came here to learn the internal workings of a business like this. The public sees the shirt go in, the public sees the shirt go out.
well,
They don't know what's going on with somebody juggling those figures at 1
they
o'clock
don't
in the
really wanna
morning.
know. It's like when you call an ambulance, all you want to do is make sure that they come in
Bottom
a
line.
timely factor, be nice to you, and know what they're doing when they get here.
I'm interested in all of it. You want to see the ugly pipes, Calvin? I mean, how I could think. All right. So over
Well,
here
right
is it
on
just
in
a
there.
holding area, you said?
Yes, this is just a holding area.
All right.
After we assembled the area in back of us on all this pipe arrangement, then they were sent over here, and this is what we used to call the driver's racks. We had like 5 different or 6 different routes, and they would all be placed into this area with a driver on one particular rack and another driver on another rack, so that this was a big holding area for clothes to be delivered.
I see. I see packages and packages up here. What would all that be?
This is all storage area for linen supply.
Oh, I see.
A lot of napkins, tablecloths, that sort of thing, which was a big part of our business also. We used to lease out tablecloths and for all different kinds of functions throughout the North Country.
Yeah. You know, like I said, the average person goes to a big banquet. They don't know
That's right.
who did the tablecloth.
I kind of feel bad about that because we used to a lot of complimentary work for a lot of different organizations.
Did you really?
Especially the churches. We always enjoyed doing business for the churches, and we always hated to charge them. We got to the point where we had to give them a cost charge, but it wasn't. We just had to do it that way. It got so big that we were giving more away than we were taking in, and there's a lot of different church functions going on, and there are a lot of different churches and different organizations around the North Country, and all doing a good cause, but we just couldn't give to everybody.
You know, it's very easy to give away more than you take in. My wife keeps telling me that's the story of my life.
That's true.
But it's all a part of that giving back thing. But after a while, there is a bottom line, and you have to get to the bottom line and move on. I have the feeling, before we move the camera again, that you don't have too many regrets in life.
No, not really. I haven't always made the best business choices. But
How many of us have made all the
sometimes,
right choices?
It's always the afterthought that you say 5 years down the road, you say, oh, I should have really done this or done that.
Hindsight is 2020.
And, yes,
we
it
all
is.
know that.
Yep,
But you are where you are.
that's right. We
My theme song is
move on.
next chapter. Tomorrow morning, with any luck, we'll get here and we'll find something to occupy our day.
That's right.
Something to smile about, and that'll be a good thing, right?
Yep.
Is there anything else we can see here?
You want to move on to dry cleaning?
Repair area?
Just repair area? Yes,
Yeah, what's
right
this?
where the camera is pointing now is different types of sewing machines for different types of jobs. One's for, say, shortening pants and cuffs on suits and that sort of thing. And the other is just for simple repairs of any kind that a person may want to do through their garment that's ripped or torn or something of that nature.
So you had mighty good tailors on,
Oh, yes, yes.
people
Yes, it
who
is.
could do the work
Yeah.
well and do it quickly.
And believe me,
Time
that's,
is money.
That's a dying portion of the business.
Isn't it, though?
Very, very difficult to get a good seamstress, and we were very lucky that we've had many good seamstresses work for us. Really talented people, and it's always a shame to see those people go because you just can't pick them up all over.
Somebody was calling me, one of her daughters, Charlotte Avery, who used to do tailoring for me way back when I first came up here. She lives in a senior citizen complex right near my home. I talked to one of her daughters the other night. She's still, she's not a spring chicken anymore. She's still doing it, and you can think of the goods.
And of course, when
tailors
we
and
were leasing
seamstresses.
uniforms, we did a lot of shortening of trousers and lengthening of trousers because people come in all different sizes and shapes.
Yes, they
we
do.
never used to play around taking in the shortening or taking in the waist, that sort of thing, because that was too costly to do. We just buy a new pair of trousers and give them. But if it was the length of the trousers, and a lot of people were very particular. If they said they're a 30-inch inseam, that's where they wanted it. So we did that for many years, and that's part of that particular aspect of the business.
So even though the main taking in of new stuff will be ending by the end of this week, toward the end of June of 2005, there still have to be a crank down period, right? And you said the doors will be open for people to come and pick up their
Yes,
stuff.
we'll have, we won't stay open as long, but I think our plans are now to, and don't hold this to a fact, but we're going to try to be here from 2 to 6 o'clock in the afternoon so that people can pick up their goods while they're here.
We're talking with Ken LaPlant at Champlain Laundry and Cleaners. Well, I'm pretty sure, Kenneth, that Bob Venn is up there chuckling right now because we finally got in this room. We're going to show a picture of all the pipes here today. And I think it's pretty darn neat. This is part of an addition, one of many additions.
Well, this
right?
is the addition put on for dry cleaning, one of the many additions we put on. As you can see, there's a wall right here on that side, and that's the point of another addition. And as we grew, we just added on additions. But this, I want to just explain this unit behind
I'd
me.
love to have you.
This is what we used to finish coats, sport jacket or a suit coat would be finished on this unit. And this emits steam so that it just softens the fabric. The fabrics in dry cleaning, when they come out, are always dry. They're never wet. So that all they have to be is steamed gently to remove whatever wrinkles they have, and then they're finished on this unit. And of course, this unit kind of speaks for itself. You put the coat or jacket on this, and steam comes out through it and loosens it up and takes out all the wrinkles, and then if there's any more finishing needs to be done, it has to be done on this unit here. And of course, there's a flat iron on each unit
Always
for
a flat iron,
touch-ups
right?
of the rayon finishing unit or the inside of a jacket, that sort of thing.
It's amazing for me to see all this stuff because I never have. I've been inside laundries, but 60 years ago, you know.
Well, we've had many talented, what I call finishers through the years. Some of them are just unique and could make a suit look just like it was brand new all the time, which was a skill in itself. Because you can blow a suit out of shape, this sort of thing. Nowadays, with the different fabrics, that's we don't worry about it because they're made differently and they're using different synthetic fabrics which don't stretch. But the old wool, silk, uniforms and clothing had to be especially handled. Especially silk is very difficult to work with. And of course, wool, you don't want to get it wet. Now you can treat it so that you have washable wool. But back in the early days,
that was an oxymoron, wasn't it, when you and I were young?
Yes, it was.
Washing wool.
That's right.
That way.
But nowadays, you can wash a lot of those things, which diminishes the workload of the dry cleaner.
You know, I was going to mention, and this is obvious from what you've been saying, if people haven't drawn this conclusion, the climate, the business climate has changed, but the workforce climate has
Changed definitely.
Many different ways.
There's a lot of competition in Champlain. All of these, what I call the box shops around, that are warehouses that do pick and pack.
Box shops is a good, I've never heard that phrase, but that fits, doesn't it?
Most people know what they are. They take in goods in huge quantities, and they break it down into smaller quantities and ship it out to different stores and businesses throughout the world, actually. And there are many of those around. And it's not a highly skilled job, but it's in a lower labor paid market, which we always have had to deal with in the laundry business. It's not a high profit, it's not a high paying operation. And if a person came to me and said, you know, I've got a job interview down at Wyeth where you start off at triple the pay that I was paying, I'd say congratulations, go for it, because if they're willing to give you that kind of money, you deserve it.
But the additional ingredient in that formula is the fact that sometimes the modern workforce doesn't have the same drive that the workforce did. And I'm not necessarily talking about the good old days, but the work ethic, in some cases, has changed over the years.
The work ethic has changed. As you say, that you've talked to many people over the years that hated to go to work. If you hate your job, you're not going to do a good job. There's no question about it. You're just doing the job to get it done and go home. And I was always very, very fortunate to have so many good people work for me through the years. And it was just that the workforce was here, and they were growing up, they were taught to work at home, and so they knew what work ethic was. And they would come to work and be happy all day and go home and to their families at night.
You know, we look at this program and most everything Calvin does on Hometown Cable as a chronicle. We chronicle history as we go, and we make history ourselves today.
Oh, yes.
It just dawns on me as you talk that this is a huge piece of history
Sure,
here,
sure.
and I'm so glad we're able to capture this story.
That's right.
For the next generations after you and I are gone, hopefully not for another 50
if
years
you want
or
to
so.
go back a minute, one of the businesses my father was in was selling ice.
Come on.
This is back when I was young, early 30s and very early 40s. And soon the refrigerator came along, and who needed ice in a box to keep your food cool? So that business.
He had an ice business here?
He had an ice business here, right? Used to harvest the ice.
Out of the lake?
Out of the river.
Out of the river.
And we used to have a building on that side, which was the ice house. And I can remember going down many, many times at night and Sundays and Saturdays to give somebody some ice for their refrigerator or camping trip or whatever.
Isn't
Just
that cool?
One of the things that
And I got two sets of ice tongs, and young people walk in and say, "What are those things for?"
It looks a little bit like logging equipment.
Yeah,
We're going to move on to this next unit.
Well, why don't we just move on to the next unit? All right, Calvin says you're looking at that baggy thing there. I bet you that's not what it's called, though.
No, it's a pants topper, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
designed to do the tops of a pair of trousers. And all you do is you slip them on up over this, and this steams like the other pieces of equipment do. It steams, and these two heads right here come down and press the front of a pair of trousers to give it that finished look. At one time, there were very few trousers with pleats on, so it was really a simple thing to do.
Yep.
Later years, all trousers, not all of them, but a lot of them have pleats, made the job a little more difficult and certainly a lot more time consuming. And after they were done on this unit, I'm going to turn my back here, and then the leg was done on this unit in two different lays. One lay for each leg, and then if there was any touch-up, it was done here. If there were any particular tough job of steaming out wrinkles in a pair of trousers, that's what this unit was for. So that's how we did a pair of trousers. And you can do anywhere from 30 to 6 pair of trousers an hour in this unit.
Come on.
Nope.
I can't even imagine how cotton was flying here when you were really under full operation.
Well, it
Wow.
was pretty easy when you had standard trousers. None of them had pleats on, like the army trousers or something.
Yeah.
No pleats, really simply job to finish them. So that
What does this mean? Left shoe, right shoe? What's
this
all
is
that about?
this finishing head right here.
Oh, I
that-
see.
That comes down and
Yeah.
plants up against a pair of trousers. So this is the left, this is the right.
So you just kick it with your foot, or
Just kick it with the foot, and there's an expander on it, so when you put the trousers on there, it expands to the size of the trousers and holds it in place.
very, very interesting. Is
Very
this
simple.
something that turns? I've been looking at this.
This turns, and this is a conveyor belt, or belt, or whatever you want to call it, but it's a type of conveyor. So that when the finished product was done, pair of trousers, we put it on here, and it's a worm type thing. So we just go down the line and go to the assembly area.
I was looking at it, I was saying to myself, that thing moves. That's
Yes.
got to be like a worm.
It just turns. It just turns.
Isn't that amazing? And it would go through the clamp?
Oh yes, see the size of a hanger. It just fits right in there and goes down the line.
golly, isn't that truly amazing? Yeah, you'd have to have like an assembly
Because
line.
it saves a lot of walking. You imagine
Oh, yeah.
a person finishing 10 pair of trousers and you have to carry them down. It's just
So somebody on a shift would stay here all day?
Yes, yeah, do trousers.
What do you do for a living? I do trousers.
Excuse me. Most of our people were multi-trained. They could step into that unit or help wherever they were needed. So that usually a finisher could do any finishing job in the plant. And that was always important, to have one person to be able to do many jobs.
That's amazing and wonderful. And there's more.
And there's more. We're going to move.
What were you going to say, Calvin?
Did they come in a laundry basket? That's how they got them, then they put them out on a hanger? Or when they came to them, how'd they come?
Basically, we would just lay them across a wheeled rack and bring them up here. Or we used to use this one, and they'd all hang on a hook and come down. When we first started, we didn't have the sophisticated conveyor system, so we used to put them on a rack and wheel it down here. And then we put in this conveyor system, and I can show you the hook when we get down the other end, which would hold 20 or 30 pair of trousers, so that they would hang right here, and the girl would stand here, take them off of here, and put them on here, look around and do this, and then go back and do the second part of this, and then come back and do the second part of the trousers, and put them on a hanger, and out they would go.
So as of today, all this equipment is operational?
Oh, yes, sure. It'll all be operational in the morning. Tomorrow, what's tomorrow? Thursday, Friday.
We don't know about Friday night, but that's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing to me. All right, let's move and
Okay,
look
move
at
on.
something else. We moved down about 5 steps. What do we got?
This is what we used to call the silk finishing unit. Not that it necessarily handled all silks, but it handled all of the dresses and things that needed to be ironed or touched up by hand, so that all of the dresses and blouses and that type of fabric would come through here, and basically we'd put them on this form finisher on this end, and this is a more gentle machine. It just very gently steams and doesn't expand very much. And then the girl would come around to this part and do any finishing that needed to be done, and of course she ended up doing a lot of hand touch-up. That was what this whole job was about, was a lot of hand touch-up in this operation. And these are little puff irons that particular, we call this a shoulder puff iron, which fits into the shoulder of a dress, and we do that. This one over here, which is covered, is a very tiny little puffer, and it doesn't have a top on it, so it gets very hot, of course, they all do. So we keep it covered. But they're designed to steam up specific areas of a dress.
You know, the amazing part of all of this is, and I listen to my kids talk, and I watch my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren get married, and sometimes they have never ironed anything
Oh, yes.
in their lives.
That's right, that's right.
Never have put on an iron, and they said, "Grandma, which end do you hold?" And what do you...
Well,
so she
you know,
gives them a little
Let me
education.
tell you, I'm not used to operating in a home washer and dryer.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Okay, we're
huh?
going to move on.
It's like the mechanic who can't keep his car running, huh? I can't go forward without a little bit of humor. You said my wife and I are buying a washer and dryer, I don't know why that struck me as very, very funny.
Well, she doesn't think it's so funny.
I think it's hilarious.
But yes, we're going to buy a washer and a dryer.
You brought your stuff in here to be done, and somebody said you better bring it in today.
That's right. For many, many years,
Is
my
it?
laundry here now being washed and finished for tomorrow, and this will be my last time to get my laundry done for free, so to
I have
speak.
to ask your wife, what do you push for the light cycle or what?
Believe me, that's going to be a training.
I think that's hilarious. All right, what
Okay.
am I looking at here?
This is what we call the steam tunnel.
Yeah.
And actually, it goes on these little hooks right here. A pair of trousers go on here and come around. This rotates and it enters the steam tunnel. And what it does is steam up a pair of trousers. All of the uniform trousers and uniform shirts that we did, none of those were finished per se on the press. They were just steamed. They were made of 65% poly and 35% come out right, 35%
Close
cotton.
enough, yeah.
So they were all wash and wear uniforms. So that all you needed was a steam tunnel. And it also used to give them some vibration there. It kind of shook them a little bit to shake out the wrinkles, and they'd come out the other end finished. And then they would go on this conveyor and go down the line and be assembled.
Okay, that's where the motor is.
So when we were doing uniforms, which we did probably 2 or 3 or 4 hours a day, we'd be assembling and doing uniforms so that they would all be washed or dry cleaned, depending on what kind of soil they had, and be put through the steam tunnel, put onto the conveyor, and go down and be somebody on the other end assembling. And that's why we had all those different pipes down there for different assembly. Nowadays, this is all barcoded and all done electronically.
Oh, really?
That's right.
With barcodes? Not only the grocery store.
That's right.
Big Brother has got a handle on everything,
So why
huh?
don't we keep going, and right behind me,
All right.
and turn around here. This is a dry cleaning unit per se, and this is what we call a petroleum unit. It's put in here and cleaned and dried in the same machine, and it's using a petroleum product, which is a good cleaning agent. I must say it's not as good as what we used to use. We used a product called perchloroethylene, which in my thinking was the greatest solvent there was for cleaning, and it's basically a good degreaser. So that we used to do most of our uniforms in those, and then they developed different detergents so it was easier to wash them and cheaper to wash uniforms than it was to dry clean. And there was always a environmental hazard with perchloroethylene. If you spilled more than, I think, a quart on the floor, you had to supposed to call the EPA and tell them that you had a spill and this sort of thing. So that was always a risk and a problem. And when it came time to buy a new unit, we decided to go petroleum, where the restrictions weren't quite as severe.
So this is a much newer unit.
This is a much
Somebody's got
unit.
machine.
This unit is only 5 years old. I think now it sells for about $80,000.
Oh, is that all? 80
on the
grand?
market, yeah. Everything's expensive, just like everything other thing. And these behind you, those are all filters.
Well, they are.
Yep. And
Let
there's
me get over
there's
here so Calvin can see
And
those.
there's also a still attached to the machine where you boil the solvent, condense it, and it comes back as pure again. So every time you wash, there's a certain portion that is distilled automatically.
I see.
And it all goes through the filters to take out the solid particles of any
Makes
garbage.
perfect sense
Yes, it does.
to be able to recycle at least part of it, huh?
And right over here is the major operation. This is what we call a spotting board, where every garment was looked at and gone through and removed any spots that would not come out in the regular dry cleaning process. And of course, she has many different agents to use for the removal of different kinds of spots.
I'm looking what it says, blood, egg, perspiration,
Oh,
and
yeah.
other protein stains.
all
Yeah,
kinds of different things.
all kinds of different stuff to use.
That's right. And this is a skill in itself. And
I bet it is when you
I
stop to
think
think about it.
I did this for many years, and we've had many other well-trained people that learn the business, and a couple of them we've sent to school, and they have a home course you can take, and the girl that's doing this operation now is taking all of those courses, and is well-trained, been doing it for, I'm gonna guess at least 10 years, and I may be wrong. It may be a lot longer than that, because the soap finisher has been here for almost 30 years.
No kidding.
Yeah, yeah, and her husband is a well-known person in Altona, and she's one of our prized people from Altona, which we always treasure.
Told you,
I'll tell you,
Altona.
they had a great work ethic. And I don't
Isn't
know whether
that
it was Altona,
amazing?
Moores, or Champlain or whatever,
love
but these people in the North Country had a great work ethic.
Yeah, I want Kelvin to take a look at this over here. I don't know if you can see it. It's a safety pin, a big safety pin, part of a hanger, and look what's hanging from it.
Yep.
Isn't that
Yep.
cool? Talk about ethic. Is that neat? Somebody's personal preference, and I carry
believe
medals
so.
in my pocket everywhere I go, every
believe so.
single day.
Yep.
That's cool.
One of the
Just a little
reasons why I
personal
always
note.
hesitated to get Bob Vennon here was that this maze of pipes I always thought would turn people off as to what all these pipes and paraphernalia was for.
You know what?
But
You talk
maybe I
about
was
that.
wrong, but that
I'm
was
sure
my
you were
feeling
wrong
at
because
the
I think
time.
it's so interesting. And these maze of pipes are conveyors and steam lines.
Oh yes, there are air lines, vacuum lines, steam lines, and wherever you have a steam line, you have to call. There's a steam return line.
Oh,
that
that's
when-
right, too,
when
sure.
Steam hits the cold surface, it condenses back into water, and you have to recover all of that. And there's vacuum lines, which is an air vacuum. Like this end of the board is a vacuum,
Aha.
and it sucks away all of the water and debris you're working with, so that you don't want to get the garment very wet. You try to keep everything as dry as you can in dry cleaning, but you do have to use water for water-soluble spots. So it's as simple as that.
Well, it's not very simple as far as I'm concerned, but it's simple to hear you tell it, and I'm delighted to be here today inside of Champlain Laundry. Where to next?
We'll go over back into the laundry operation. You've seen all of the total dry cleaning operation. We're going to go back into the laundry operation.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right, we're looking at the door. What are we
We're looking at the
here?
door. That's where the trucks used to back up into and deliver the work in bulk, or if it was a family-style laundry coming out of Plattsburgh or around this area, then it would come in bags and go into the room where you really can't see it. But all of the private retail customers, so to speak, family customers, that was handled in this back room and identified by either number or name, whichever was appropriate for the fabric or the garment or the customer. And then it came into here, and this is basically the washroom. This is an add-on we did in 1969 or 70, and these washers, these two of them behind me, were bought at that time, and then 2-3 years later we bought this one over to my right-hand side. Now these are very similar to a home-type washer.
They don't look anything like mine, I can promise you that, Kenneth.
Okay, they have 450-pound capacity.
Yeah, that
each
makes
one of them.
that's
Each one of them. But they wash and extract in the same machine. And what I mean by extract is they spin at a high rate of speed and remove all the excess water. And that is what everybody is going to now in a home-type washer, is developing a home-type washer that spins at a faster rate of speed so that you get rid of more water, less drying time. And these times where electricity is so high and everything else is so high, if you can dry a garment faster, you're going to save a lot of time and money.
Well, you learned that many years ago, right?
And yes, it was always very, very important to us. And these are just various sizes. The 3 big machines are all.
And we're not embarrassed to say that the battery went dead, and so we switched machines. We have another digital video recorder. They're about at least 1/20th the size of the big machines that Kelvin wore his armor out in the last, 22 years. Unbelievable. And you were just saying
I was saying
450 pounds.
These 3 washers right here are 450-pound dry weight capacity. The washer right behind me, this shiny one over here, is I think rated at 100 or 150 pounds, and the little one is rated at 50 pounds. So that we handle different size loads, because if you're washing different formulas, and that means wash formula, some are washed hot, some are washed cold, some are washed at slow speed, some are washed at high speed, some are washed at low extract and high extract, all different formulas. Each machine holds about, I don't know how many different formulas that are programmed into them, so you dial up the formula you want to use, and that's what comes out.
Isn't that cool? And these 2 are the same size?
These two are the same size. These are the original washer extractor we bought. And this has got 3 different pockets in it. There's where you rotate it around, there's 3 different sections that you can load into.
Oh.
And they all have to be fairly well balanced to do that. And they are just set on the floor, and they have a self-balancing system to them, so that you don't need a huge foundation to hold it down. Like I'm sure everybody's seen their little washer bouncing around the
Yeah,
floor
sure.
at home. Well, these don't bounce around the floor.
If they did, you'd want to be heading for the hills. We're talking about a 5.2 on the Richter
And
scale.
they're all built with safety in mind. If they get out of balance, they shut right off, and that sort of thing.
We just moved to another corner of the room here. What are we looking at now?
Okay, we're looking at dryers behind me. These are all 100-pound dryers. One little small one at the end. The yellow one is 2 15-pound unit dryers, and the small one behind me is a 30-pound dryer. So these are all 100-pound capacity dryers, and used mostly to do bulk work in, where you had huge loads of bath towels and things that needed to be dried, and also used for some family work. There isn't an awful lot of family work. Family work has been diminishing over the years because of the inconvenience of having taken a laundry someplace. It's a lot easier to buy a washer and dryer and do it at home at your convenience. So that's a dying business also, the family laundry. And shirts still remain popular for the professional person, but certainly not like it used to be 20 years ago.
What about you mean about the complexion, or as you called it, the climate changing? When I was a little boy,
Now we can
You
turn
know,
around behind me. These are 2 huge, what we call flat work ironers.
Right.
If you take a sheet and lay it out flat, it goes through the
Oh.
machine and comes out the other end dried and folded.
and folded?
And folded,
I
right,
like that idea.
right. So that when you were doing, 4,000 or 5,000 sheets, or, at one time we had a contract with the hospital, and that was 6,000 pounds a day on a 6-day week.
You gotta
So
be
you were
kidding.
doing lots of volume through here, and we had, that was back in the era of the small motels, where there were probably 30, 40 small motels in Plattsburgh. None of them had their own laundry. We did all of that business. As the motels got bigger, it became more efficient for them to put in their own laundry and dryer. There's a certain point in their business where it becomes more economical to do it themselves. And that's part of the changing world.
Just remember what I said before?
Oh, these are the walk-off.
Remember what I said
walk-off
before?
mats, what
There
we
you
call
go.
walk-off mats, that we use in different businesses to use
Sure.
at the entrance to the door to keep the dust as you walk in the door. And they work wonderful. I'm always surprised.
I told you it was a part of my life in the radio station for all those years. A guy would come in, I'd hear that sound, and I knew what it was.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the southern areas where there is no ice, they're more in control of dust, and that's what they were originally developed for, was to control the dust in the environment. Now up here, people think about them as using them in the wintertime, where people track in snow on their shoes and you have a wet pedal at the side of the door, and then this floor becomes slippery. They're more designed up this way to hold the water. And they work equally well in different situations, except that we never used a dust-controlled solvent on them because there wasn't that much dust
Don't
involved,
have to worry about it.
right?
Well, let's just look at the backside of the machine here and tell us what we got.
Okay, this is what we call, it's an 8-roll ironer. If you count the rolls, there's 8 rolls on it, and there's 8 chests on it, and the chests are all steam heated. They'll come to a temperature of 300 and some degrees, I believe, and depending on how much steam pressure you have. So they're very hot, and they can completely iron a sheet traveling at 40, 60 feet a minute. And of course, it comes back to capacity and efficiency. So the faster you could put a sheet through, and this automatically folds the sheet, so the sheet comes out folded. So it took only one girl on the receiving end, 2 girls to feed it, and probably another person or 2 preparing the work for feed, so to speak. So that is basically a flat work ironer with a folder attached.
And there's 2 of them.
There's 2 of them side by side.
work
We
side
have
by
not
side.
used this one for some time because we didn't have the capacity to use it. We just
I just saw the
Can
name
do it
John
on
Deere on the
contract.
sign. Who would know that John Deere would make a...
that's a joke.
Oh, it is?
Yes,
No,
that's a
see?
joke. It's not.
It's
my
not a
son-
John Deere. He
It's
painted
not a
it
John
green.
Deere. Painted it green.
Little humor
and
involved
put
there?
John Deere on. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. My son did that.
I was surprised to see that.
Great humor in there.
I love it. Okay.
You know, these both machines, it's interesting that that machine on the further end is probably older than I am, and I'm 75. But the older the machine, the better steel that was used in it that would hold the heat, and it was more efficient to operate. And I thought that was kind of interesting because the new machines are much more difficult to find good steel that holds the heat to do the finishing job.
That applies in a lot of different aspects of life. I think you've covered a lot of mileage by just saying what you just said about the machinery. I like that idea.
Okay, we're going to swing around over here.
Oh, we did an about face here. What have we got behind you?
Okay, this is strictly a bath towel folder. And all you do is take the bath towels that come out in bulk out of the 100-pound dryers. We put them in one of these big containers, wheel it up to here, and feed the flat bath towel into it. Automatically folds it, counts it, stacks it, and it comes back to the operator. He takes them off the top part, puts them in a hamper or ties them, and they're ready for delivery.
Same guy or woman does the same operation, feeds them and ties?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The same person feeds, ties, and folds. And the machine, of course, does the folding. It doesn't do the tying, but it does count them and stacks them in either 10s or 15s, however you set the machine to do.
This looks like a more modern than some of the equipment, right?
Yes,
deceiving?
it's been around a long time. This type folder. This just it looks really well because it's well painted and well cared for. But
It's blue, but it runs like a deer, right?
that's right. That's right. And this is a great time saver also.
Oh, I'd
I used to have
imagine
to
it
fold
is.
all those bath towels by hand. I used to, when this thing used to break down, because we never had a spare, it was always
Oh,
a
this was
disaster
it?
because then they'd have to fold a couple thousand bath towels by hand, which wasn't so much fun some days.
Behind me is the patriarch and the matriarch.
That's right, my father and mother, and this was taken at Chamber of Commerce banquet, and the plaque is over there on the wall. Ross's Point, Champlain Chamber of Commerce, and let's get a little closer and read. I don't know if it says a year or not.
I don't know.
Yes, year 1975 that was given to him, and he more or less was fully retired at that time, but enjoyed his many years of service to the community, and also started this business. He was one of the I like to think of him as an entrepreneur. He did many things in his life. He started off selling apple pies to the barracks in Plattsburgh,
Come
and that was about
on.
1918, I think.
Apple pie.
His sisters used to make the apple pies at home, and he would peddle them to the troops in Plattsburgh. And
That was,
back
that was
then
a
it
huge
was,
time here, 17 and 18.
Oh
in the
yes,
Plattsburgh
they
area.
just loved to get an apple pie homemade, and that was like heaven to the service people in Plattsburgh. And that goes back a long ways. A long ways.
Isn't that it? So he did quite a few things.
Yes, he did.
in his
Yes, he
li-
did.
in his
In his lifetime, we
Cutting ice. And
had a fox farm. We raised mink. We raised turkeys. We had a huge garden. He had strawberries, raspberries. He had a greenhouse operation. What am I missing here? All of those things that he went into, and a lot of them were lost because of economics. As we started off saying, he had an ice business early on, sold ice. Of course, refrigerators took away the ice business. The foreign market diminished the demand for foxes and mink pelts sold in
Sure.
this country. And what else did I mention? Greenhouse operation. We ran out of, I think he ran out of time to do that. And that was in the old wooden building that we had. So that, after the fire, that was left behind. We didn't get into that anymore. But he was an inspiration to me and an inspiration to many people, I think.
it's amazing, but I should tell people, I guess, that we're in the office area, right?
We're in the office area.
This was pretty much your home for a
Pretty
long
much
time.
the end of the tour. To be truthful, I never spent much time in the office during the operation.
You were just out there doing
I
it, weren't
preferred
you?
to be out in the plant. We had two very well qualified people in the name of Ione Morelli, who was here for many years, and she was here in my young years, and just was a terrific person, and used to help and direct me along the way. And I can remember saying at one time we wanted to get a credit card And she was the old-fashioned type and did not believe in credit cards. And she said, should never buy a credit card. That you're going to misuse that, and first thing you know, be charging this and charging that. And so we had a little go-around about obtaining a credit card. But she was a great person to work with and a lot of fun to be around.
You mentioned before, and we would be absolutely remiss if we didn't underline the fact that you've had some wonderful employees down through the years. I know it's difficult to talk about that and with the risk of leaving one or two out, but you had some great long-time employees. We were talking about a driver that Calvin knew that you said was so wonderful with vehicles.
Pete Morrison, of tiny, I won't say tiny stature, but shorter, and used to be one of the route men that and had a route around this area. Also went up into the Malone Messina area, and loved by all his customers. And he was just a fine person to work with. They'd come in early in the morning, do their job, and the customers all loved them. And it's kind
Work on his own vehicle if it broke down.
Oh yes. He had the quality of being a very good driver with a vehicle. His trucks used to go 100, 200,000 miles and never be touched. No major motor jobs at all.
That was big time back in those days.
That was big time back in those days. Nowadays it's routine to get.
But he was a safe driver.
Oh, very safe driver. I don't think he ever had a serious accident at all.
Isn't that great?
Yes,
Well, this is remember what I talked about before about the work ethic?
Yeah. Oh,
he
yes.
was a prime example.
Yep, very much so.
And there were others.
Oh, there were others. We have Daryl DeMars, who was here for 30 some odd years. There are many, many other people. Right now, the office manager has been Juanita Monez, who is.
She snuck out the back door before we could get her
Her
picture.
stepfather is Daryl DeMars, a longtime driver.
Yeah.
He's been here for 30 some odd years. We have Robin Bishore, who's been here for, I'm not going to guess the years, probably 10 or 15 years. I'm not quite sure.
She can hear you talking about her.
Oh, I know she does. And she's probably going to be upset with Calvin there for putting the camera on her.
She didn't even see him. She made believe she didn't even see the camera turning around in that direction. But guess what? Everybody will tell her, what were you doing? You wouldn't look up and smile at the camera. Some
So
people
this is actually the most valuable end of your department where the collection of money and the bills are generated, and hopefully the money comes in behind the bill. And Juanita was totally in charge of that, along with Ione before her. She came to work, I think, just about out of high school, and has been here for, I believe, either 25 or 30 years. I'm going to get myself in trouble with the years here because
better you than me, baby.
we have so many people that worked here. And we have one of the longtime laundry supervisors that was with me, Mildred Willette, still works for us. She retired and still comes back to work and works part-time for something to do.
Isn't that
When we were back in the heyday when we had 45 employees, she was the laundry supervisor and did a terrific job and had lots of responsibility. Because let me tell you, it's kind of tough to take care of 45 people. Some of those people were in dry cleaning, but most of them were in laundry at that time.
Ken LaPlant, when you jumped on this horse all those years ago, I bet you didn't know where that horse would end up, did you, huh?
No, I didn't. We worked hard at it and greatly increased the business, and it was successful. But like any other business, you have to work at it. I think around the community, people like Dave Southwick, who worked hard all his life and developed a terrific telephone operation. There are success stories all over the North Country.
And it's it's a tribute to where we live. And I know there are a lot of other parts of the country that people will jealously protect and celebrate. But we're here, and we're proud. And somebody would say we're here because we're not all there. But we're here because we love it here. We love the people. We love that even a change of climate that you've mentioned, we love because it forces us to get up early in the morning and face the new challenge.
That's right.
And even in retirement, there are more.
I must say that I don't get up early in the morning much anymore unless I'm doing an ambulance call. But
Well, you've already been up till midnight doing another ambulance call.
so I find that kind of nice to be able to get up around 7:30, 8 o'clock rather than 4:30, 5:30, or 6:30 in the morning and come to work. But
I
I always
admire.
enjoyed it. I always thought the morning was the best time of the day. For me, anyway, I can jump out of bed and and be fully alert in 30 seconds. And
It takes
ready
me
to
about
go.
45, and that's after I bounced off this wall and that wall, tripped over the dog, said a few very choice words, and you know.
Uh-huh.
Ken LaPlant, I admire you. I commend you for what you've done. You have what the French call joie de vivre. You find goodness in a lot of things that weren't necessarily good, some things that are pretty darn bad, but you know you have to.
Oh,
When
yeah.
you're, when you're down, you jump up and conquer that obstacle and move on to the next hurdle.
Well, there are many obstacles and many little things that go on in business that you could
And in
worry all
life.
night about, and many a time I did worry all night about them. But
Then you
they
dealt
always
with
seem
it.
to have it of resolving
And
themselves.
then you look
like
back and
everything
say,
else.
that wasn't such a big
That's right, you
deal.
do. I always thought the worrier should have a little button to turn off so he wouldn't worry, because what a wasted bit of energy that is.
I love it. I want to say thank you for inviting us here. Best of luck to you for the next 40 years of your life. So now you have another challenge. And on the ski trails next winter, who knows what's going to happen at Smuggler's Notch,
That's
right?
right. Thank you. You're very kind.
Yeah. Thank you and have a great day. And who knows where we're going to be next time for our little corner.